Hello, everybody. Today we continue our format of live online masterclasses from our investor community. And we have 4 masterclasses today. And we'll start with the Fireside chat with Darwin Ling, Good AI Capital, and Tess from Tess Ventures. They will speak on the recent investments in Good AI Capital in VastBiome and AI microbiome startup. So I give the floor to you, Tess and Darwin. Please start.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be able today to help moderate and help discuss about, Darwin's amazing venture fund and also his investments into VastBiome, combined with any input I can give or insights that I can give about venture capital or entrepreneurship. So I think I'll start off this fireside chat masterclass with a little bit about my own background, and then I would invite Darwin to help share about his background and also about his initiatives into his investments and into his VC fund. So I'm very honored to be helping Latoken speak since early formation days. In that time, I'm based out of Silicon Valley. Darwin is based out of Silicon Valley. So at that time, we were all able to speak and convene in person at the conferences, and been very happy to be part of several initiatives. At that time, one of them was leading the female investor group. Was very honored to invite other female investors also to help speak and talk about their investing strategy and support some of the companies. So a little bit about my own background. I started startups as early as undergrad, and from there I was able to make sacrifices and help do my degree and build my startup. So front loading all that hard work, by the time I graduated, I was able to, with my co-founder, have actually 3 acquisition offers. And from there, never looked back and was able to officially exit the company and then move into investing. So I decided to pay it forward by investing into other founders, and that was through starting my own venture capital investment platform. And with that objective in mind, I decided to study and spend some time at Stanford University, mainly with the goal of being mentored by the best, venture capitalists, the best professors, and an ecosystem of amazing entrepreneurship and the resources that was offered. So the people I met was incredible. I learned a lot, and I was able to add value to a lot of the different people at that time, and also in Silicon Valley. So my own background, my family's from Hong Kong, which Darwin and I have a common, background in that area. While I was born and raised in Canada, I definitely believe that my vision was to be a bridge with Asia and also here in Silicon Valley and ultimately globally. So what happened was, in my investment thesis of why one reason I wanted to start an investing platform in my investing fund is my dad, when I was quite early in my 20s, actually got diagnosed with cancer. So at that time, as an entrepreneur, it was a very understanding that it was a very fatal cancer diagnosis. It was pancreas cancer. It was also, roughly around the same time that Steve Jobs was also diagnosed with pancreas cancer. That's when I decided that without a medical background and a research background, how can I give back and also understand how to treat my dad with the best treatment? That's when I looked into health technology and into learning and meeting some of the best entrepreneurs in this area. So that's why I also, one of my theses in my platform is investing in health tech and anything that is related to health. So I also made investments in biotech and also in other health technology, software background, or other areas. And I'm forever very interested in understanding how to use technology to enable health, disruptors and other people in this ecosystem. The other areas that I invest in is also in regulation tech, which is, privacy tech, compliance tech, and also, data management, identity tech. With that said, my recent investment that has been into an amazing team is Login ID. That's also something that if anyone is interested in hearing more about, in a separate session, I'm happy to do that. And, that is where it's a company that focuses on authentication and then also later into compliance in a box technology and into managing privacy and data usage, which Darwin and I had also spoke about. AI is something that is very important. So that obviously leads me into, what Darwin is doing and how, there's synergy and alignments into what his venture fund is investing in, and also into, perhaps even what VastBiome is doing. So I've learned a little bit about it from Darwin and also reading up about it, but I'd love to introduce Darwin and have him speak about his background and also about, his investment thesis. So with that said, I'll hand it over to you, Darwin.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for Tess for your great introduction. Let's like to talk about a little bit about our fund. So my name is Darwin Ling. I'm the founder and general partner of Good AI Capital. Good AI Capital is a VC or venture fund that focuses on early stage AI companies in the sector in fintech, healthcare, and B2B SaaS, software as a services. You might find our name a little bit funny. We call Good AI Capital. So the good really stems from the fact that we want to invest in companies that have a mission. Our mission is really quite simple. It's if you do good, you will end up doing really well. So because of that, we partner with entrepreneurs and technologists that have a deep desire to really leverage or use AI technologies to tackle some of the most challenging problems faced across these different industries. We focus on early stage AI companies. Typically, we involve in at their seed stage, but we also participate in even in this later stage, such as Series A, Series B. A little bit different about our fund investment strategies. We have what we call a high conviction, high concentration strategies. And what that means is that really, we don't have a lot of companies in our portfolio. We intend to have about 25 to 30 companies. But what we want to do, we want to get involved at the early stage. We involve as a consider ourselves as one of the founding teams or founding members. The idea is really we want to get our hands dirty, roll up our sleeves, and work with the entrepreneurs where we try to help them scale at that early stage. And at the end, we'll be able to not only just try to participate via capital or investment, we actually leverage our background, our deep technical background, our industries to really help the company scale to the next levels. A little bit about our background. I am a entrepreneur myself, such very similar background to Tess. I came to this country or US many years ago as a student from Hong Kong, and really have a fortune or blessed to have been able to develop my career and receive my education here in this country and able to thrive and be very successful. I have several exits under my belt. Most of them are in actually enterprise software, as well as the most recent one is in the also B2B SaaS sales productivity. We have built AI or used AI as our founding technologies to help drive some of the insights and intelligence to help sales organization to scale and gain that edge during the sales processes. We have marquee clients or customers that are, household names such as General Electric, Home Depot, and the names that actually, really using our software. So in 2017, we sold our company, and this is a time when we thought about starting a fund with my partner. And we have done successfully in our career. And really, I think like what Tess has mentioned, we want to pay it forward. Not only just by the fact that, okay, now we want to invest in company just by deploying our capital. We want to invest our energy, our background, our network to help the next generation of entrepreneurs to succeed. And that's why, kind of adhere to our mission where it's not about just trying to find the unicorns of the world. Although this is actually something that is critical to us, you have to gain financial success. But more importantly is that what kind of impact that you can drive towards some of the initiatives or mission that we have laid out. And that's why, me and my partner decided to launch this fund together. So I'm an engineer by training. I've been the CTO of these startups that were, that I worked with. My partner is a neuroscientist, and so we thought it's important to use technology to drive some of the changes in, say, software industries or some of the supply chain or whatnot. But more importantly, if you can actually use technology to drive, to change lives, what better initiative I say, apply that to healthcare. And I think that's very, very important to us. And that's why I recruited my partner to join our goals or courses here. A little bit also, we, in addition to sharing the common background from Hong Kong, I also came to my family. Also, my mother actually suffered from a stroke, many years ago, and that's actually we have to really spend a lot of time taking care of her during those difficult times, and that's actually kind of one of the main goals that really led me and my partner also, because of the family struggling with various diseases and all that. That's why we really want to be very interested in using, investing and actually leveraging healthcare to make that change. So that's it.
That's great. Thank you. That was an excellent introduction to the background. What I would love to move forward in discussing and kind of hearing more about is, I know that we spoke about, one of your top investments in your portfolio, and I'm actually very, very interested in learning a bit more. We can talk a bit about VastBiome. I think that is a company that is truly at the brink of what the current world is, lacking. It's a pain point area that I believe you guys have, discovered, a technology that I would love to learn more about, and what the team and the vision is. In my aspect, I actually also in the last 3 years have been very active in a particular health company. I am an advisor and also an investor into it. That company is PrimeVax, which utilizes well, actually, what they're solving is a cancer treatment that actually is using a very radical approach, which is utilizing dengue fever to be able to, treat cancer and, be at a very interesting stage. The founder, he has a, excellent background and ability to execute. So that's an area that I've been, also very interested in, largely because, my dad is Asian and he, was diagnosed with cancer. So that's why, learning about what, is happening in the space, in the sector, and also what, great investors such as Darwin is investing in, and hearing about what VastBiome is doing, which is, something else that is much needed. I'll let Darwin talk a little bit about that if you can.
Sure, absolutely. So let's talk about, for VastBiome is a company that really look at microbiome. So for those who are not familiar with microbiome, actually it simply means microbe or bacteria. So for human body, basically there are a lot of those microbiome that exist in our human body. It can exist in our skin, our gut, and our mouth. It might sound a little bit, disgusting, but actually it is actually existing right now. So I'm sure the audience must be familiar with the word prebiotics, postbiotics, and all that. These are indeed actually the microbiome. So basically these are different products or category of products that exist in the market right now. The prebiome basically refers to a prebiotic, refers to some of the more natural fiber that exists in different vegetables and fruits and whatnot. And for probiotic, let's actually talk about some of the bacteria that exist in some of the food that we eat. So the prebiotic, think of it as a fertilizer, or when you when you take those or eat them, basically it can nourish your or slash fertilize your microbiome or your bacteria inside your body. In a way, it's actually help you become more healthy. And the postbiotic, in other words, is actually also like exists in products such as the some of the food that you eat. Yogurt is a fermentation. Basically, it has the microbiome or the bacteria inside the food that you eat, and hence actually think of it as a good bacteria that actually can go inside your body and then actually have a very good effect towards your body. And that's actually some of the things that I'm sure most of the audience are familiar with. So for VastBiome, basically, they're looking at, I think, microbiome, but microbiome that exists where it has a lot of value in terms of towards your prediction of your health. And more importantly, because it has actually a lot of potential indications or potential what we call a prediction that has a that would lead to say whether you can actually create a better drugs towards your body. It's a great potential predictions and tools that can use to create the next generation of drugs that are potentially good for your body. So that's actually in a high level, that's actually what microbiome does. It's trying to use AI, use some of the synthetic biology, as well as the microbiome gene sequencing of microbiome that allows us to to create potential new drugs for some of the existing diseases. So that's sort of the high level. So I think the reason that we invested in microbiome, again, I think that a couple things where first of all, the field, a couple reasons. The microbiome has demonstrated a huge amount of successes in the last couple years. There have been studies, that have been research that's proven that some of the microbiome by itself is able to help the patients to be a better responder to different drugs and all that. So that's a really one promising field. And what's actually give us a what give VastBiome an edge, I think particularly is use of synthetic biology, as well as its use of using gene sequencing or the analyzing of genome in terms of identifying that potential signatures that will allow us to indicate that what the potential disease occurring. So for those, maybe I can give a little background what's the gene sequencing. So you might have heard of the gene sequencing, but basically it's the analyzing of the genome. So there's actually also another trend that is taking place. So for gene sequencing, it used to be a very expensive operations, even though you have all the computing power in the world, using the various technologies. But there has a drop in the cost of doing gene analyzing, where it's similar to another trend that is taking place. The cost of the gene sequence has been dropping significantly, and it's similar to sort of another revolution, which is the Moore's law. For those who are familiar with the Moore's law, basically what that means is that back in the days when the first computer chip was emerging, there is Gordon Moore basically has predicted that the number of semiconductors or the nodes, diodes within the semiconductor would be increasing, doubling every year, while the cost is halving. So basically, you have this exponential curve that are taking place that demonstrate the power of chip, and essentially that's actually the capacity increasing while the cost is dropping. That's actually in a way, the Moore's law has been powering technology or computer revolution in the last few years. So we're seeing the same thing that is happening for gene sequencing, that was allowing us to say, doing a lot of gene analysis, that are allowing is much cheaper to do gene sequencing. So that's actually, going back to VastBiome, that's actually one of the exciting areas that is using the gene sequencing technology to analyze microbiome. So I want to talk about one more thing. I talk about synthetic biology. So synthetic biology basically meaning you can actually do the reading, editing, and updates against cells and genes. So it's very similar to computer operations, where you have done database operations or write code in database. That's exactly the type of operations that you're performing. So now we're performing against cells and genes. In other words, actually we're programming against cells. And actually, it might sound very scientific. I mean, very science fiction-y, but in fact, actually, it is happening right now. Some of the most transforming therapeutic solution, the gene and cell therapies, which a lot of you might have heard of, is actually based on synthetic biology. So with the power of AI that kind of just blend or draw these two areas, the gene sequencing as well as synthetic biology, a lot great innovative therapeutic solutions are emerging because of those two capabilities that are emerging. And actually going back, and that's why we are so excited about the possibility of using the opportunity to work with VastBiome that actually leverage these three-pronged areas to create this potentially the new classes of biotech companies that are coming of age. So I pause here a little bit first. Maybe there are other areas that I think that maybe I would just sprinkle in a little bit about what else is in the company that allows us to invest in this company. But I
Yes.
kind of give the platform back to Tess and have
Yes,
her,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was very informative. And I definitely learned a lot about the fundamental aspect of what VastBiome is and the area that they are, solving and helping contribute. I would love to learn a little bit about, what are the fundamental core, drivers of why you chose to invest in this company. And, later we'll probably talk a little bit about, why it is, this timing of the market that you chose to, do this. But why don't we first start with, why did you and your team choose to invest in this company specifically? If you can talk to that, that'll be very helpful.
Absolutely. So I think one of the key things is really the team here. We care a lot about the founders. We care a lot about the missions. The first time I met with the team, one thing that really draw us to the guys that, basically these guys are, these are doctors from Stanford. They are data scientists from Harvard. They're Google, ex-Googler, and all that. So the first question I said, you guys could have make good money from doing all this existing career that you were in. Why are you giving all this up and, started this company? And an obvious reason is that, well, they said, we want to cure cancer. That is their response to the question. That immediately kind of draw emotion out of me, because that's exactly why we want to invest in companies that are really trying to save lives. And then what else can you do, that can benefit the humanity by just say using this technology, and is willing to say giving up all that that they have, and then focuses on working on the startup, working on the technologies to really create this something very impactful. And that kind of seals the deal immediately, where why we invest in it. Of course, they have all these great capabilities, all the great IPs that are surrounding in it. And of course, that's actually part of the due diligence process. There's a movie, back in the days where these guys had me at cure cancer, that's really just like really draw the emotion out of me again, but again, we are very data driven, we are very scientific driven. So that's the part where, but really 90% of the time already decided that this is a great company. So a little bit about the specific operation details. So I think we talk about the technology side. So usually building a biotech or a biotech life sciences company, one of the challenges are usually these people, they're not a software company. Although a lot of people think of them as a software company, but they are not a software company. So software company usually, other than say, you can just have a couple guys work in a garage or work in the office, just try to create a great product, and hopefully you line up some sales and all that, that will be it. So for a biotech or life sciences company, it actually draws a different skill sets. Of course, technology is important, but you need to have like the medical background in this case. So, one of the things is really these guys are actually doctors, they're pathologists. For those who are not familiar with the pathologist is a study of disease, if you will, the causes of disease, why they're happening. It will kind of focus on the more research side as opposed to the practice side of things. So these guys are the pathologist experts in cancer, and particularly using microbiome and all that. So that actually is very unique skill sets that we look for some of these biotech companies. You might heard of in a lot of these biotech, in addition to the traditional executive role like CEO and then the CTO, there's also like a chief medical officer. And that's actually what we're looking at. I think these guys have it. And also one more thing is about the partnership. I want to talk about a partnership. So some of these biotech companies or the startups, they are not focusing on just simply on building a great product, building technology, building the pipeline. So you need to kind of really latch on to sort of the industry leaders, because these guys are the pharmaceutical leaders, are the one that actually, first of all, have the budget, and they're looking to partner with great technology companies to build out their pipeline. When I say pipeline, it's the drug pipeline. where it usually take a long time to discover drugs. A typical drug life cycle is about 10 years, take billions of dollars to develop. But now they're trying to say, kind of fan off some of these pipeline to some of these technology companies or startups, because they have the advantage of the technology. They can shorten the cycles, and they're looking for partnership basically. So in reverse, we also want to look at startups that say kind of have already built out their partnerships with some of these leading farmers or some of these industry leaders, and that actually could speed up the development process, maybe even 10 times, 50 times. So when we met with VastBiome, they already have pipeline with some of the leading pharma companies. They have projects in line, and these are not like just work project. They actually have revenue associated with. They have $1 million value that associated with those projects. When we come to during the due diligence phase, we met these guys. They already lined up some of the lead, with great projects, and that kind of just like again, really add to it, where this is a great this is a great startup company that allows you to tap into that development, what we call co-development process. And that's why we're at the end, we met the team at the conference. We have due diligence within a week, and during that time, actually, that's where the whole coronavirus is taking place. So everything is take place via Zoom call. I only met the founders probably once in person, and that was it. So we have this whole exchange from looking at the data room, doing due diligence, calling the customers. Within 2 weeks' time, is that we wire the check right at that moment, and that's actually kind of excite us. Where if you have great company in place, you don't really need the more traditional way of doing business, which is you need to have, of course, you need to meet the people in place. But now, just the fact that everything is online, the resources online, you really can't hide a lot of these things, especially in the the software arena, the technology arena. So we're able to see the data, and all that are really give us confidence that these are good companies that allow us we can build the confidences once the mission or the values are aligned. So we decided to proceed forward. And by the way, we have posted an article, a blog post, basically documenting and chronicling investment process for this company. That's kind of say, during this coronavirus impact, we want to invest. We're not afraid of the impact that it's driving, having the negative impact. We're not afraid to deploy the capital. We want to help the entrepreneurs. We've written that article to send a signal to the world that we're here to help the entrepreneurs, and we're not afraid to make that investment now.
That's excellent, Darwin. Hearing that insights was very helpful. It also allows, those in the audience who also is fundraising or, other investors to also be excited to know that there are great funds right now who are still very active. And what, Darwin and his team here is doing is a great example. I myself also believe firmly as to what Darwin says about the reason why one invests into a company, especially for, Darwin and my, venture funds, thesis, which is investing in early stage, is the founding team. So for example, my, top portfolio company that is doing privacy regulation tech, the founding team was very impressive. I met the CEO, and it was at a, private VIP dinner that was coordinated amongst, domain expertise people and also other investors. So from that point on, I, quickly did the diligence and discovered that, his background was amazing, very, very expert in what he was doing, and also had a very, good complementary team for the areas that they had, a gap in. That's where my added value as an investor was able to help fill in and help accelerate the team quickly. And, at the end of the day, investing at such an early stage, it is about the pain point they're solving, their background, how much expertise they have, and the composition of the founding team, and also their values, principles, and vision. So I think what Darwin shared, aligns to that a lot. I would love now to talk about, if with the few minutes we have left, if Darwin can talk about Good AI's fund in areas that you covered a lot about it already, but anything that you think you want to give us a little bit more information on, before we have to end our this great informative fireside chat.
Yeah. So I think I kind of lay it out. So we talk a lot about healthcare or some of the investment in VastBiome in this talk. So we also have a key focus on fintech and as well as B2B SaaS. So we share a lot of kind of commonalities with the Tess investment thesis too. So I have been an early investor in another great fintech startup back in the days. It's called SoFi. In case you're not familiar with SoFi, it's a student loan company. So I invested in a company back in 2013 during the Series B or Series A round at the valuation of 100 million. And now the company is a $5 billion company, household name. And one of the reasons that we want to invest in financial technology, it's also the ultimate impact. SoFi wants to help students to pay off their student loan, but they actually want to serve them to create a sort of trajectories to become like better off in their financial well-being. And that actually aligns very well with our mission. Do good, do well, and then they also try to use AI as part of the enabling technology, doing credit scoring, kind of identify different customers during the different phases, really augment or kind of give us the inspiration to say, if you can merge technology or AI in this case and apply towards a worthy cause, financial problem, health problems, you can deliver great results. And with great results, then you can actually financial return will come. And that's actually our general thesis, where why we want to invest in fintech, because these are imminent problems that are faced by everybody. And if you can actually address it, the revenue, the customers will come, and customer will be more than happy to pay for all the services and products that you offer. So I think that's it. So that's kind of like, wrapped up all the fun. Yeah.
That's excellent. From my side, I also believe very much in the technology disruptors that Darwin's fund is investing in. For myself, I've come up with a quick, easy way for people to understand, Tess Ventures investment philosophy and the areas that we would currently focus on. Essentially, there's 4 pillars. One of them is in regulation tech, privacy tech. The second one is Southeast Asia. Any opportunities that can help accelerate, allow me to help, be part of investing, advising, and bridge them to Southeast Asia, where I firmly believe is also the next big opportunity, largely because of the demographics and the geography of, what is happening in the market there. So anything related to that at an early stage, whether it is over in Southeast Asia or if it's, outside of it, if, we can help bridge that, that is very interesting to me. A third area that, of course, is dear to my heart is investing in any teams that have female leadership. We, already have, a little bit more of a challenging times in terms of being able to be part of the founding teams of fundraise. So I want to be able to help definitely support and give back in that area. And then the fourth area, which is, quite which is what I call wellness and health. Anything that relates to this area is important, whether it's, mental healthness, wellness, or whether it's actual physical health, or just anything that is relationship health. That is also very important. The psychology and the interactions between, people and each other and relationships has always been very, fascinating to myself, who believes psychology is, something that if one understands is a core driver to having one be successful. So hopefully, between what great, founders and investors such as Darwin and what AI Good Capital is doing, and what Tess Venture here are doing, hopefully we all can help the community, especially in these trying days. So I'm very happy to be able to have anyone reach out to myself. I'm sure reach out to Darwin, and hopefully we can be of assistance and help move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tess. Thank you very much, Darwin. It was a very insightful sharing you had on the Fireside chat today. And I give the floor to our next masterclass, represented by Ibrahim Alkurd. He is CEO of NewMine and will speak on the blockchain mining and May 2020 halving. Hello, Ibrahim. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, Nadia, how are you?
Hello. Great, thank you. Please share with us your masterclass, and please just start it.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, thanks Tess, thanks Darwin for that. Enjoyed your comments. So my name is Ibrahim Alkurd. I'm the CEO of NewMine. We are a cryptocurrency and blockchain mining company. So I've got a little presentation that I'm going to share just right here. So can you see my screen?
Yes, it could be full screen if possible.
Yeah, no problem. Now we should be full screen. So yeah, so today we're going to be talking about blockchain mining in May 2020 halving, which is a very important event because it's an event that occurs once every 4 years. And this is brought to you by NewMine. NewMine is a company that has been around since 2016. We do institutional grade mining operations for ASICs and GPUs. We source cheap power, produce firmware and software for the mining ecosystem. And a lot of what we do is education, stuff like this, because mining is a fundamental aspect of the blockchain ecosystem, and without it, the network can't run. So it's very important. I believe that everyone knows about it and is well informed about it. Yeah, you can check out our website if you've got any questions. I'm going to make this short and sweet. I've got around 20 minutes, so I'm just going to cut to the point. So if you guys got any questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to speak to anyone. Any questions at all, feel free to do. That's my LinkedIn ID. Okay, so let's do a general market overview. So obviously the traditional markets have been crazy. I mean, recently oil futures have gone negative. Everything, what this pandemic has proven is that during times of crisis, really the financial system can be standing on pillars of sand. So in my opinion, Bitcoin has done a pretty good job. It's floating around the $7,000 mark at the moment, which is pretty solid. And the mining ecosystem is still growing. The hash rate has been growing recently, so people are still plugging in and setting up mining operations, which is great to see. Now, let's talk about what is mining. Not everyone is aware of what it is. So mining is done for proof of work coins, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. And sorry, let's go back. For Bitcoin and Ethereum. And this is a process whereby very powerful computers, essentially supercomputers, validate transactions. And the successful miners, the ones that break down the code, they obtain new crypto as a reward. And this allows a healthy stream of new coins to flow into the network. And some coins, for example, XRP by the company Ripple, are pre-mined. So the only way to obtain them is to buy them. But Bitcoin and Ethereum can be mined. Bitcoin is mined using ASICs. Ethereum is mined using GPU rigs. So types of mining hardware, I just mentioned them briefly. There's ASICs and GPU rigs. The main supplier of ASIC machines is a company known as Bitmain, and the latest model of mining hardware they released is the S19. But we are seeing competitors come into the space recently, one of which is MicroBT. And I think what's going to happen is that over time, these companies are going to start taking a share of Bitmain's market share. ASIC stands for an application-specific integrated circuit. It's essentially a machine that is designed to do one thing and one thing only. For Bitcoin mining, it's Bitcoin ASICs are only designed to mine Bitcoin. Litecoin ASICs are only designed to mine Litecoin. GPU rigs, on the other hand, mine a range of coins. So the same GPU rig can mine Ethereum or Monero or any of the other altcoins. So they're more versatile, but they're not as powerful as the ASICs. So on the left-hand side, we have an ASIC. On the right-hand side, we've got a GPU rig that our company has been selling. These GPU rigs are purpose-built. You can see the cards at the front, and you've got the power supply and the other components at the back. It's very important for air circulation with these machines because they get very hot. They generate, they consume a lot of electricity. They convert a lot of the electricity into heat. So you need to ensure good air circulation, both within the machine and also within the data center that they're running. This is a mining operation, a GPU mining operation of some of the machines we deployed for a client in North Carolina. And we've stacked dozens of these machines next to each other. So the total hash rate, let's analyze the total hash rate. So as you can see, over the last year, the hash rate has gone up considerably. You can see around March time, there was a big drop. And the reason this drop occurred is obviously, so what happened was what we found is that as Bitcoin has been maturing as an asset class, it's been more correlated with the traditional markets. So when, because of the pandemic, the traditional markets tanked, we saw a massive drop in the price of Bitcoin alongside the traditional assets. Now, a lot of the smaller miners, what happened was they couldn't mine profitably anymore. So they had to unplug their machines. As a result, the hash rate dropped. It was actually, I think, the biggest drop in hash rate in the history of Bitcoin's existence in terms of percent. But you can see it's recovered considerably since then as Bitcoin's price has been stable around 7,000. Some of those miners have been switching back on. Now, the miners that are struggling during these times are the miners that have more expensive power. The bigger miners, cheaper power, cheaper mining hardware, have it a lot cheaper. The entire industry runs on economies of scale. The more money you have, the bigger the mining operations you can run and the bigger your profit margins. So it really makes it difficult for small players to compete. What we saw is that in the 2016 halving, the mining from home no longer became profitable. What we're going to see in the May 2020 halving is that the big players are going to take a bigger share of the market. This is the Ethereum network hash rate. You can see it's gone up considerably since Ethereum was created in 2016. There was a big spike around 2017 time when Ethereum went over $500 and even around $1,000. And then we can see it stabilizing around the 200K mark in terms of total network hash rate. So a lot of people are still doing Ethereum mining, but the issue with GPU rigs is they're harder to maintain and take care of than ASIC. So we're definitely seeing a bigger demand for ASIC mining as opposed to GPU mining. Okay, so factors to consider when mining. As I said, it's all about economies of scale. So the purchase price of the machines, the more money you have, the more machines you can buy, and the cheaper they are, right? So the big manufacturers like Bitmain give you a discount when you buy large quantities of machines. The more you buy, the bigger the discount. Depreciation and machine price, we typically factor in and need to upgrade your machines every 3 to 4 years, because what happens is over time, the computing hardware gets older and new stuff comes onto the market. The same way, new iPhones are more powerful than old iPhones, it's the same with mining equipment. So when you're making mining models to look at profitability, you need to factor in a depreciation of machine price and a reinvestment after 3 to 4 years. Electricity cost. So mining operations are typically deployed in places with cheap electricity. This can be in America, you've got North Carolina and Washington State, they have cheap hydropower. You've got Labrador City in Canada and other places in Canada that has a lot of cheap renewable energy sources. In China, China dominates the mining industry. You get loads of mining operations in China. And in Europe, you've got Iceland and Norway for cheap power. And you want the cheaper the power, the better, because these machines consume large amounts of electricity. I'd rather drive my car in the UAE, for example, than the UK, because fuel is cheaper over there. It's the same with machines. You want to run your machines where the electricity is going to be the cheapest. Variations in mining difficulty and asset price, we can't factor for this. We don't know how many people are going to plug into the mining infrastructure, and we don't know where Bitcoin's price is going to be. Predicting where Bitcoin's price is going to be in 12 months is like trying to predict what the weather is going to be like this time next year. It just doesn't happen. So, but there's definitely something that's going to impact the profitability of a mining operation. So what are your options if you want to get into mining? You can have 1 or 2 machines at home for fun. You're not going to make a lot of money, not anymore. The mining ecosystem has changed. It's dominated by big players and big mining infrastructure. You can consider cloud mining. The issue with cloud mining is it's not profitable, right? You're better off just buying the crypto, using your fiat to buy crypto as opposed to cloud mining. I don't know anyone that has made a lot of money off cloud mining. The only people that make a lot of money off cloud mining are the people that are selling the mining contracts. The other option is buy your own hardware and get hosted professionally. It's what we do as a company. But we tailor typically to larger institutional grade mining operations. So stuff that's deployed in big data centers or in purpose-built containers. So if someone's looking to run 5 miners, we're not really the best company to go to. But if you're looking to run 100 or 1,000 or 2,000 miners, etc., then that's what NewMine caters for. So the halving is going to be in May 2020. We know this because it's mathematically programmed into Bitcoin. There's been 2 prior halvings. The block reward is the reward that's given out to the network every 10 minutes. In 2012, it was 50. It was in 2012, and the first halving, it went from 50 to 25, and now 2016 went from 25 to 12.5, and now we're going to go from 12.5 to 6.25. So the difference is that with mining Bitcoin, over time, the amount of inflation of Bitcoin into the ecosystem drops. So that's how it really differs to fiat. Governments can keep printing more and more money, and over time, the amount of the purchasing power of your fiat drops. But with Bitcoin, it can go up, potentially because the amount of Bitcoin in circulation or that are added to the network drop. Yeah, so that was what I was discussing. Inflation rate. That's the inflation rate of a monetary base. If you look at the blue, and in the orange or the red, that's the inflation rate of Bitcoin. So over time, as the block reward keeps halving every 4 years, it halves more and more and more. The inflation rate keeps dropping. So Bitcoin has actually been very revolutionary in that aspect, in the purchasing power. I wrote a piece that we've got a blog on our website, newmine.io is our website, and it looks at the historical impact of block halving on Bitcoin's price. But to summarize, what I said in the piece is that what we tend to see is prior to the halving, we have 100% run up in Bitcoin's price. This is when we analyze the last 2 halvings, and within a 12 to 18 month period, we have a massive surge in Bitcoin's price, and a new all-time high is set. This doesn't mean this is going to happen again, but this is if we look at history and study it, that's what happened last time. So that can be one way of predicting the future, is looking at historically what happened with Bitcoin's price, but it's not a guarantee, of course. History of Bitcoin halvings. Yes, this is what I covered. So the first halving was in 2012. You can see there was an uptick in price. Second halving was in 2016. But what I will say is that with this third halving, the entire ecosystem is different. You have more institutional money. Bitcoin everyone has heard of Bitcoin. Even any retail person has heard of Bitcoin at some point, probably when it went and reached 20K. So it's just interesting to kind of see when we overlay halving on Bitcoin's price, what we see. And this is what we see. Again, more of that is covered on our blog if you guys want to have a look. I like to judge Bitcoin by yearly lows, not all-time highs, right? Because all-time highs are usually set during periods of FOMO. Every retail investor wants to get in and become a millionaire overnight. If you look at Bitcoin by its yearly lows since its inception, what we see is that Bitcoin has been going up and up and up in terms of yearly lows. So in 2012, the yearly low that Bitcoin set was $4. If we look at 2015, it was $185. 2013 and 2019, it was setting 3.2 and 3.35K in terms of yearly lows. So I think this is a much better way of analyzing Bitcoin's growth over time. So this might sound crazy. Can Bitcoin hit 100K, right? And it's possible. It's possible. And this is a video by Mark Ross. I haven't got any affiliation with him, but he explains how potentially Bitcoin can reach 100K, right? Every single fiat currency, bar none, has collapsed sooner or later. Gold and silver are the only forms of money that have survived the test of time. Since the time of the Athenians and the Egyptians, these have been true forms of money. And now the internet is 30 years old. So maybe it is time for us to have a digital form of store of value. And Bitcoin may be that store because it was the first one. It has the first mover's advantage. So that's an interesting video if you want to have a look at it. If you have a look at Mark Ross on YouTube, he talks you through it in a very logical sense. There's a lot of very crazy stuff in that industry, but he breaks it down quite nicely. This is a quote by Mike Maloney. I like this guy. He says Bitcoin and gold are on the same team. He's actually releasing a book called Gold, Silver, and Crypto later this year. I've got no affiliation with him again, but I recommend reading this book. I've not read it yet, but it's going to be good. This guy wrote a book about gold and silver and how to invest, and it's one of the best-selling books of all time. And by when he found out Bitcoin, he's like, Bitcoin and gold are on the same team. So it's a pretty good sign. He's one of my favorite economists to follow. Bitcoin and gold, although they might be on the same team, they differ in the sense that Bitcoin's mined over time, which I mentioned previously, produce, whilst the gold mined over time goes up and up and up, and you can see the difference there. So Bitcoin, in that respect, as a store of value, has a advantage over gold. So comparing Bitcoin and gold mining, so one of the points is that people say, is BTC mining, BTC mining bad for the environment? With most mining operations, they're run on renewable energy sources, at least outside of China, like hydropower and sometimes thermal power, and sometimes power manufacturers, they use their surplus energy, and instead of, they use running mining operations to increase their profit margins. So I would say it's not bad for the environment outside of China. Okay, gold mining actually consumes 20 to 25 more energy than Bitcoin mining. BTC is far easier to store and transfer than gold. The typical ROI time of large-scale mining operations for Bitcoin can be as short as 9 months, or 9 to 12 months. Gold mining ROI time can be as long as 8 to 10 years. So those are the facts. I'll let you guys make up your own minds. But in a lot of ways, Bitcoin mining has proven time and time again to be more profitable than gold mining. But the issue is that a lot of people don't understand how Bitcoin mining works. But actually, it's a lot simpler than people think. It's essentially a virtual form of gold mining, where the more computers you have, the bigger your upside over everyone else. And it's very much an economies of scale. These are purpose-built containers, which are recently hitting the market. We produce them in our company. You can put your mining hardware in them, and you can fit as much as 1 megawatt worth of miners into these mining containers. They're very mobile, very secure, and you can deploy them anywhere you want. So this is the direction that we've seen the market heading in. There's a lot of data centers that are mining, but also we're seeing these mining containers being built. So the halving of 2020 will make mining more centralized. There's been a lot of articles talking about how Bitcoin mining is very, very centralized. It's a monopoly. A small amount of people run pretty much all the, most of the mining infrastructure. And the next halving is going to push more and more of those smaller miners outside and make it even harder for them to compete. So it's definitely going to be something that's going to make mining going to make mining much more centralized, and there's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately. Talking of mining centralization, this is some of Bitmain's mines. You can see how big they are. The typical person, can't compete with this. These guys can get really cheap machines, really cheap power, and really squash a lot of the smaller competition outside of the market. This thing, mining at home, no longer that profitable. The people that are doing it really are doing it as a form of hobby. So this is a screenshot I took a few days ago. So if you go to bitcoinblockhalf.com, it does a countdown to the halving. It's estimated to be 12th of May 2020. So you can actually watch it as it's happening if anyone cares that much. What I'll say to you, if there's anyone out there that is predicting future price or anything like that, or telling you Bitcoin is going to be worth X amount in the future, right? Anyone can say anything, right? No one substantiates it. If there's 100 predictions from 100 different people, 99 times it's wrong and one person it's right, it's probably because they got lucky. So yes, I personally think Bitcoin is going to be worth more in the future. This is my own opinion, but we don't know how much it's going to be worth, when it's going to be worth what. So be very careful whose opinion you listen to, including mine. Cointelegraph is a good source. They've got a mining subsection for mining news. So that's something if you want to keep up to date with the industry. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do so. Ibrahim Alkurd, if you search my name, come up. If you got any questions, shoot them my way. I don't like to charge people for everything. If you want any sort of advice, I'll do it free of charge. We're looking to really allow the blockchain mining ecosystem to grow. We don't want to charge people for everything that we do. A lot of what we do is consulting free of charge. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you for your time. If you've got any questions, reach out to me, and I hope this has been useful for you guys. This halving event is going to be you know, it's going to have a massive impact on Bitcoin. It does. It happens every 4 years, has a massive impact on Bitcoin long term, whenever it happens. I'm not expecting much to happen when it halves, except that a lot of miners are going to struggle to be profitable, but it's definitely going to have a long-term impact, and really it's going to affect the supply of the network. So that's it from me. So I'll pass back to Nadia.
And what are the current trends you see that you could maybe mention in the current environment, how it impacts your industry?
Yeah, so it definitely impacts the models that we're generating in terms of profitability. So we have to factor in the halving when it's going to happen. We have to factor in what's going to happen in terms of the electricity. So obviously, if the amount of supply that's coming into the network every 10 minutes is being halved, then you're going to have to need cheaper and cheaper electricity. So over time, what's going to happen is that the mining hardware is going to have to become better, and on top of that, people are going to have to source cheaper electricity. So it's going to make the sphere very competitive, more centralized, and it's going to be less decentralized. I know people talk about how Bitcoin is decentralized, but actually, if you look at the facts, a lot of the mining operations are run by the same people. A very small proportion of the amount of Bitcoins are held by a small number of people, you know, Satoshi, Winklevoss twins, all these super rich guys. So it's not really as decentralized as people like to think, but it's definitely a revolutionary technology in terms of that it's allowed us to trust people in a decentralized network. So it's definitely food for thought.
Okay, do you see any of the enterprises in your field changing their business models currently and trying to adjust to the new realities of this pandemic?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think so. What's happening? What we're doing as a company is we're developing firmware to increase the hash rate of machines and reduce the power consumption. So that's by doing that, we can increase the profitability of the machine. So I think that there's going to be a lot of innovation in the next few years by mining. I know I've got some colleagues that are using liquid immersion systems for cooling. So the space is going to be innovated more and more, and it's great. There's going to be new technology coming in. I think that this is going to make it more competitive and more interesting to be involved in. And we're also seeing a difference in terms of pool share. So Poolin is a pool that's come up recently, and it's taken a big share of the market, and it's only been around for 12 months. So if you want to check it out, I think it's poolin.com for the URL. But yeah, I think it's definitely a space to watch out for. I think thank you all for your time, and I hope that this has been useful.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim, for your in-depth discussion and the presentation. I think that this masterclass will be helpful for our audiences. We have serial entrepreneurs here and investors who are interested in this field as well. And I pass the floor also to Alex Nascimento. And hello, Alex, how are you? Oh, just unmute yourself, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadia, appreciate it.
Yes, and Alex will also give us a keynote on 7cc blockchain investments, and the topic would be the STO financial revolution, how security tokens change businesses forever. So, and I pass the word to you, Alex. Please share your thoughts, ideas, and presentation. Thank you.
Sure. So just for housekeeping, we have like what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
You have some 25 minutes to go, so please.
Okay, got it. All right, so for those of you who haven't seen me in one of these Latoken webcasts, my name is Alex Nascimento, and I teach blockchain and security tokens at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, here in LA, and I'm the managing director of 7cc Blockchain Investments. We're a company that invests and help clients issue their security tokens. Now, let me share my screen. Share screen. Desktop. Share screen. All right. Let's do this. I hope you guys can see it. Nadia, let me know if...
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, yes. If you can share it full screen as well, that would be great.
Let me see here. Full screen. With video. full screen mode. All right. Guess you guys can see full screen now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. So real quick, I'm just going to go through some of the key concepts here of security tokens. And do we have time for questions, or are we open for Q&A? I'm happy to do that as well. But we'll dive right into it. So my name is Nascimento, like I said, and I teach blockchain here at University of California. And I wrote this book called The STO Financial Revolution, mainly for one reason. In 2018, after we launched the UCLA Blockchain Lab, now known as a Blockchain at UCLA, the SEC dropped the hammer on all potential ICOs, deeming them unregulated security offerings. And as an institution, we were very concerned about making sure students and our corporate executives education program was teaching people how to utilize blockchain in a regulated financial way. So this is not user-friendly. So here's the book. I welcome everyone to download it for free. You can use the code STObook-Latoken, all in caps, and you can get the first edition of the book. If you want to get a more updated edition, you can get it on Amazon, and all proceeds go to the UCLA Blockchain Lab, aka Blockchain at UCLA. So on my private business side, I manage 7cc blockchain investments, which we invest in STO and blockchain projects. We provide research and education services on blockchain security tokens, and we advise companies on how to issue STOs in the blockchain space. So just a small caveat, since I'm casting live here from the US. I'm not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice. So if you think about doing anything related to issuing tokens and raising money on the blockchain, I recommend you contact a lawyer. So just like, cryptocurrencies, STOs are an interesting advent of the technology, because blockchain allows us to create encrypted files that cannot be double spent. And if you think about that concept being useful for cryptocurrencies and things like, money, it would also serve as just like a share of a company or any kind of investment contract, right? If you create that file, and the investment contract can't be duplicated, then the holder of that investment contract, the holder of that security, the holder of that share of a startup or of a bigger company can be secured that, they're not going to be duplications of that asset. So I'm sure that everybody here on the call understands how smart contracts work. So, not going to go in depth over that, but the same way smart contracts work for a variety of transactions in the blockchain, it works in the same fashion for investment contracts. And if we, from the beginning, think about security tokens as an investment contract, then we can see how it would pencil out in a blockchain environment. Here's a simple example of someone buying a house. That contract of purchasing a house or purchasing real estate is an investment contract that could be coded as a smart contract, and all the contractual abilities and terms of that contract would be encoded in the smart contract and stored on a blockchain and automatically executed. So we come to this kind of fork of the road in 2018 when the Securities Exchange Commission of the United States deems majority of ICOs a securities offering. So, think about this way. The SEC here is the regulating body of the United States for everything related to securities and investment contracts. And in 2018, the SEC tells the world, well, ICOs are technically an investment contract. Therefore, they should be regulated. And every ICO so far, or not every, but majority of ICOs so far were not regulated. Therefore, they were a breach of securities law. So that, in my opinion, was a big tipping point in the market, which helped crash the February meltdown in 2018 of ICOs and cryptocurrency prices. So I'm just going to go over briefly here the difference between an ICO and a security token, right? So if we think ICOs as utility tokens, then these utility tokens should not be deemed an investment contract. There should not be a designated value or characteristic of investment behind a utility token. So an ICO should only be initial coin offerings for utility tokens. And if we go to the definition of what a utility token, that should be an access token, a token that gives user access to an app, a product, or a service, not designed as an investment. And if you look from the investor point of view, if an investor buys your utility token with the expectations of making a profit on that price that they paid for that utility token, then it could be deemed by the SEC as a security. Therefore, the vast majority of ICOs were in 2018 deemed a security. And what is a security token? A token that can be deemed a security token is a token that is expected to increase in value. So if there is that expectation, it should be subjected to federal laws and regulations, just like a share of any company. Now, one of the things people ask me when I go around the world talking about security tokens is, why is the SEC so relevant, right? Why are people paying attention to the SEC, especially in countries outside the United States where people are not so familiar with the overarching powers and hands of the SEC? So I give people one brief explanation. If you think that traditional markets, bond markets and equity markets, in total, global market cap, 40% of that total global market cap is operated within the borders of the United States, and with the utilization of dollars as a conduit of exchange. So the SEC is the regulating body of that market. So you have one 800-pound gorilla that controls 40% or 4 out of 10 trades that happen in the world, bonds, equities, traditional markets, right? If you are a traditional investor, if you are an institutional investor, if you are a bank, a hedge fund, a VC with aspirations of tapping into that 40% of the global market, you need to abide by the rules and laws of the SEC, or else you're out of that 40%. And 40% is a huge portion. So when the SEC deemed that every ICO or potentially every ICO was a security token, the world stopped, especially institutional investors, and took a step back and were well, let's wait and see what's going to happen before we start investing in this asset class. So as we move along, just a basic definition of what a security is a fungible, negotiable financial instrument. So anything that can be considered a financial instrument should be deemed a security token. And if we look at Everipedia, security tokens definition is a type of cryptocurrency coin, a token because the security normally derives their value from a tradable external asset, which would be a fungible, negotiable financial instrument. So security tokens are defined by this representation of value on a blockchain. So if you can code an investment contract or code an agreement and store it on a blockchain that represents real estate ownership, some form of derivative, debt, equity, or previously utility tokens that were issued as ICOs and then deemed security tokens, then that will be a security token, right? Here we have a simple graph of like how a company could potentially take advantage of a security token. A company could issue a security token. Investors could purchase that security token around the world. Every transaction of that security token would be recorded on a blockchain. Some of the blockchains that are really trailing the path in this space are, for example, Tezos, Polymath with its current Polymash, and then there is a variety of players in that space which we're going to go over. Now, the blockchain will store the ownership of that token, much like NASDAQ would do for a stock or something of that nature, right? And that automation is really the beauty and why security tokens are going to revolutionize finance, because now you have all this back office that was done by banks before now being automated. Some of the things that we can tokenize, and if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, you could probably find some of the things you're working on that could be tokenized into a security token, is real estate. Real estate is a low-hanging fruit. We've been working with some of the leading providers in the space for real estate tokenization, like Liquify, doing tokenizations of assets around the world, including Panama, Brazil, United States. So if you're thinking about tokenizing a real estate asset, that's something you definitely should look into, because there's an ecosystem already in place. Startups is an easy one. Startups can create security tokens just alike shares, and then utilize the shares to raise money. So if you have a startup and you want to raise money for your startup, a security token is a way to do it. Mature companies don't need to be startups. They could be mature companies that need access to more cash, and they're willing to issue more shares, and that could be done through a security token. Energy, we've been working also with some clients that have energy facilities and are creating credits for energy that are represented through a security token. Art and other exotic products. Wave Financial from my friend Ben Tsai is tokenizing barrels of Japanese whiskey. So there is a lot of exotic products that were previously illiquid being tokenized via security tokens. And funds, investment funds, venture funds, those can all be created shares and LPGP agreements via security tokens. So some of the important parts here is to understand this ecosystem, right? Different than the ICO ecosystem, a security token ecosystem is an ecosystem that resembles or reflects a traditional market ecosystem with a few additional aspects and players. So here I'm going to go briefly over the 6 blocks of this ecosystem. First, you we identified the need for custody and trust service providers. If you are an institutional investor, you need to be compliant to your LPs, to your limited partners, to the people that gave you money. Therefore, traditionally, having a custodian of that asset brings additional layers of security. For example, if you buy a security token, then a custodian would have the private keys to that security token, giving it more security to the PE or VC firm or fund or any other vehicle that's utilizing that, right? The second piece of that block is an issuance platform. Some of our partners like Polymath are great platforms to issue security tokens and create that code or that representation of that contract and store it on a blockchain with the different aspects of the contract, the different terms, the different payouts. If you are in the United States or in many other large market, large traditional equities and bonds markets, you will also need a broker-dealer, someone who's licensed to sell those securities. Here we have Coinbase, Propeller, which is now in a merger, it's going to change names, that have those traditional licenses to sell securities. You also have legal services, you need a good lawyer, and trading platforms. Some of our partners here, like T0, doing a great job at creating the ecosystem for trading these platforms. And obviously, as you're trading regulated securities, you need to do KYC and AML on the purchase of these securities and on the trades of these securities, and you would need some kind of compliance service that would do that verification, such as Verify Investor or Netkey. Some of the key benefits of why is this going to revolutionize the world, right? Mainly cost reduction and faster settlement is the main one. Some banks estimate between $6 and $10 billion their cost of doing that paperwork, and that being automated is a huge win for the market. Dividend payments is another example. People get shocked when I mention that in the United States as a whole, only about 3,000 companies pay dividends. And why is that? Is because the paperwork and the back office necessary to pay dividends to shareholders or to investors is huge. And if that can be automated, that's a major win for the market. Startup fundraising, just like ICOs did, other startups can use security tokens to do so. Security tokens also have a lower risk of redemption. You don't need to go, if you're an LP in a fund, and try to redeem your money. You can just resell the security token on secondary market. Advantages of liquidity. You could trade that security token across the world in a much more pulverized environment. Things like real estate that were traditional illiquid now become a lot more liquid. And you have facilitation of ownership and access to a lot more people. We have about 4.1 billion people on the internet. Now, we look at some classifications around the world on how this is being done, right? I'm happy to share this slide, but I'm just going to point out here for the reason of time, some of the key jurisdictions. So in the United States, we have a very clear framework of how you can issue a security token. Places like Switzerland or Cayman are also great places to do so. Hong Kong is also, although part of China, a friendlier place to trade security tokens. Some of the most prominent security token exchanges are also located in Hong Kong. And some of the historical transactions of how this has been happening, right? This whole idea of security tokens started with the DAO scandal, where the SEC looked at the DAO and said, well, this securities offering that's breaching investors' rights. And that evolved into the Munchie test, Bitcoin becoming a commodity, lawsuits against Paragon and Airsoft, props and block stack. Props from my friend D Seidman. Shout out to D, doing a great job. Were the first security tokens in 2019 to get a full exemption from the SEC to be able to offer their tokens to anyone, just a public offering. And as we see the evolution, now we have Polymath with the Polymash white paper creating these security tokens that are going to be the future and could be traded worldwide. As we get here to the end of the presentation, I want to just point out some problems and opportunities, right? Problems that we still have a lack of liquidity is a little bit unclear how different jurisdictions control and regulate the aspects of security tokens. But we have a current traditional market of 70 trillion equities and 92 trillion bonds. And we can see here the representation of the US, about 40%, like I mentioned. And with 4.1 billion global potential investors on the internet, you could exponentially grow this market size with security tokens. Right? Things like startups, real estate, energy credits, exotic products, all these can be done via security tokens. Some of the news that we've been seeing, as I mentioned, Liquify is one of our partners. They're doing a great job at tokenizing real estate. They're partnering with Amazon Web Service, Brazilian investment bank, and the largest investment bank in Latin America, BTG Pactual, which is also another key partner of ours, plans to issue more than $1 billion in security tokens. T0, probably going to be the largest security token exchange in the US, doing a great job of onboarding users, getting broker dealers and ATSs into their trading platform. And if some people ask me, well, is this institutional grade, right? I'm just going to give a few points out, right? Swiss banks like Julius Baer are supporting crypto client. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange, as everybody knows, deals future contracts of Bitcoin. Bakkt, which is owned by the New York Exchange, also has custody and futures trading. Silvergate, which is a crypto-friendly bank, has shares listed on the New York Exchange. Fidelity Digital Assets also has custody solution for institutional clients only. And Tezos, as we've been following the news, is going to grant $37 million for ecosystem developers. And some of the case studies we've seen involved IBM, Microsoft, Polymath, Japanese bank like Japan Mizuho Bank, looking into security tokens. Like I mentioned, BTG Pactual was one of the first issuers of a security token for institutional investors. Stock exchange, NASDAQ, for example, has a full-fledged solution for security tokens, probably covering all those 6 blocks that we mentioned in the beginning of the ecosystem. Big shout out to the guys at NASDAQ. Saw a great presentation of them at Latin America. They're really doing a great product. So this is definitely going to come. To kind of wrap around, we have more here around regulatory around the world. Happy to go over this. All this is covered in the book and updated in the latest edition, which is on Amazon. France, Estonia, Gibraltar, Germany. But just to give people an idea of what's happening in the US, in the US, you mainly have 3 ways to issue a security token. You have regulation crowdfunding, which you can do a crowdfunding campaign, which was up to $1 million and now going to be updated to a limit of $5 million. So you can do with very limited paperwork for US companies. You have Regulation D, which falls under Regulation D 506C and B. There are 2 variations of this regulation, which you can offer a security token with unlimited capital raises. You can raise as much money as you want. as long as you're raising it from accredited investors or professional investors, institutional investors, or people with around $1 million in liquid assets or an annual salary of above $250,000. And then you have the biggest advent, which props and Blockstack and a few other security tokens were issued a license to do a full-fledged public offering. And Regulation A, right, which breaks into Regulation A Tier 1 and Tier 2. There are two limits. One, you could raise up to $20 million. The other one, you could raise up to $50 million from anywhere on the web, as you know, with every 12 months. So the interesting aspect here is that Regulation A Tier 2 is going to be amended to increase that potential raise to $75 million every year. That's a considerable amount of money, and you could raise it from anyone, regardless of them being accredited or non-accredited. And just to wrap up, as we come here to the ending, what do I think the future is blockchain institutional products are going to definitely be available in 2020, more regulation, interoperability between security tokens, and more security tokens exchanges, like a larger presence of exchanges like T0 with a lot more liquidity, products, and deals. My last piece of advice here is that if you issue a security token, make sure that you keep a good track record of who are your holders so that you don't have any potential issues in the future, and you have a good support from international lawyers. One last thing here is that if you have the time, I would suggest helping us with the survey as we're tracking the sentiment and the movements in security tokens. It's bit.ly/STO survey, all in caps. We're constantly updating the data points on people's interest and the market on security tokens. And thank you again. My name is Alex Nascimento. Here is my information if you want to reach out to me. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Alex. And do you think that in the current environment, maybe some of the industries mostly need this STO solution that in the current situation, mostly a lot of businesses and industries are cut off from the traditional sources of capital, and you mentioned a number of examples like this for mostly traditionally not that liquid assets. So for which industries in particular in this current environment would you advise this instrument to try?
So that's a very good question. We've been working with clients, and majority of our engagements are either on real estate, energy, or startups. There's a considerable push in the industry. Like I mentioned, my friends here in LA from Wave Financial, they're doing a great job at tokenizing exotic products like Japanese racehorses, barrels of whiskey, anything that has high value like art. You know, you could tokenize your collection of art if you're looking for cash, but want to retain the pieces of art and the ownership, you could sell part of it. But I think that real estate is definitely one that that has a lot of legs in the space, because traditionally everyone understands the value of real estate. And when you are in a certain market, let's say you guys are there in Moscow, when you're trying to sell a piece of real estate in Moscow, traditionally you would only tap into the local market, right? And by issuing a security token for that piece of property, you could give access or reach pools of liquidity that are much wider than the Moscow or Russian market, by being able to offer that investment based on a piece of real estate to U.S. investors, to Russians that live in New York, to Europeans, to Latin Americans. So definitely a greater access to a pool of liquidity. And as well for startups, if you have a startup and you have a good community of supporters, here in the United States, you can issue a regulation crowdfunding, or you can issue a Reg A Plus. We've been with our clients doing a lot of work out of Cayman and Singapore. So definitely there is a good market for security tokens for capital raising, especially in this COVID environment, which is hard to reach people and talk to VCs.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for this in-depth presentation, and I think that it will be helpful for our startups community and serial entrepreneurs who are also on our platform, as well as for investors to consider this instrument more in their portfolios, especially the private ones. And as you mentioned, institutional investors also use it as alternative to traditional PGP relationships that we have already in place. And I also introduce Imran Sheikh today. Hello, Imran. Thank you for joining us. And Imran will also share his masterclass presentation for today on the impact of the current situation post-pandemic technology. Imran is Director of Product at ShareThis. So Imran just started. You have this share screen mode as well.
Yep. We'll get started. Okay. Setting up. I may have to restart. Give me a second. Let me just restart for a quick bit.
Yeah, sure. So while Imran is getting ready, so as I will remind you on our today's program. So currently we have the final round of the keynote presentations. And Imran, are you ready now?
Yes, I'm ready. And
Perfect.
sharing my screen, and here we go. Let me bring it full. Do you see it fine?
Yes, thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nadia, for giving me the stage to talk about post-pandemic technology. Just to give a background to people, we are living in one of the most the craziest times. And we saw that years ago with the Spanish flu, but the technology wasn't where we were, where we were then, and now it's a big difference as we see it. And coming out of this COVID-19, I want to highlight one thing for everyone. We are in a different landscape coming out of it. Whether the vaccine comes out today or in the next 1 year, we are all going to be really mindful and cautious, even when the things settle down. What I mean by that is, in this COVID-19, what we've experienced is people taking their offline experiences online. A good example for that is people are having virtual dinners on Zoom. They're having classrooms, education that's happening online. More so than ever, we are also seeing digital movies releasing online. So does that mean that it'll stop happening once we have the vaccine and things change, things resolve? Well, they won't stop, because now people have to be prepared for, God forbid, if there's another post-pandemic that happens, actually. And my take on this is, coming out of this pandemic is not from an opportunist point of view, but from a point of view that how Silicon Valley and how the tech people around the world can learn and empower some of the most important industries that can help us to build a better world. Because I'm a big believer that if we use the technology the right way, we can actually reshape the future. We can avoid this another pandemic that might happen. It also helps us to basically avoid losing our loved ones, and ones who are bankrupting their businesses. We can probably help sustain, help people not lose more jobs. And that's where I feel technology, fits well, perfectly to help these people and empower them. We have to think of them also, instead of only technologies. And so there's some of the 5 things what I've been reassessing. I've been researching online, and a couple of my folks in Silicon Valley and even around the world in Europe, I've been talking, and these are some common points that I've found that you as an entrepreneur, should focus on. If you're in a VC, you should also look into it, definitely. But this is what we are going to see in current trends happening. One of them is foremost, we already are seeing tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Google Suite tools, Zoom. Like at this point, Zoom is our way of doing conferences right now. And this is the life that we are living. And so what happens after post-pandemic is we are going to see a lot of niche tools and collaboration tools, which would be beneficial. And some of the examples I want to talk about is Frame.io. It's changing the game for collaboration tools when it comes for online video production, collaboration tools. We mostly hear about tools which are either documentation, either sharing images, editing images, design. Now what we're seeing is entering a whole new world. We're seeing video post-production. Who would have thought about that years ago? Nobody. That we want to move it online, because most of the production happens on high quality iMac Pros, which are Final Cut Pros, which are built upon that, and now we're seeing this cloud ecosystem. And so we're gonna see a lot of startups, and some of them are actually already there. So Frame.io is one of them. House Party is a really consumer-facing app. It's a niche. Its purpose is actually to bring people together in various locations of their online presence. What that means is actually bringing their presence on, let's watch Netflix together, to, hey, let's collaborate on cooking parties, or let's just have a nice lounge moment online. What I'm talking about in total is entrepreneurs should now, the big takeaway from this slide I want everybody to have, please look at the current learnings from businesses where they have problems, where the needs to be filled, because now is a good time for them to be helped. And now as an entrepreneur, you've been looking to make an impact, this is the moment to take the key learnings. One of the last two I want to talk about is a good example is Sketch. They've moved everything into design collaboration online. And I remember this happening years ago. Over time, Sketch came along, InVision came along. Figma just comes in, puts everything together to make it seamless for everyone to work from home and to work remotely. As of right now, I want to give an example that I have a couple of folks actually in Brazil working on a design, and it doesn't really feel there's distance. So niche tools are going to be the next big trajectory as we see for collaboration, and they'll be mostly SaaS and productivity tools. Now, this one is something I know people are scared of their privacy, the drones, the robots. But there's a big bad notion I want to clear up the air, is people thinking that robots are going to take people's jobs. No, they're not taking their jobs. They're helping people at their job become more efficient. Let me give you an example. I've been to a Tesla factory in Fremont, California, and I saw so many workers there assembling the car, working the car. But you know what the best part about the robots was? Is the paint job, is putting the assembly in, is to make the assembly line more efficient and faster so Tesla can produce more than 5,000 cars a week. So what I'm saying is, with this whole thing happening in the pandemic, now let's take a look at companies like Apple, companies like Amazon, where packaging could be done by robots than humans. Why? Well, as we know, COVID-19 is spread because A, if you're closer to someone, B, you came in contact with someone, C, if someone who had COVID-19 touched the surface and then you touch, and since we know it's so like viral, you might get it. Robots can actually help reduce that. I'm not saying it will eliminate it. It will help us reduce these kind of risk, to help us in packaging, help us streamlining stuff, and also helping people who are working in the factories, probably remote controlling the robots the way we have done with drones. Speaking of drones, it would be so much better for our frontline workers, people like USPS in United States Postal Service, using drones for packaging. I think it's a great time, personally speaking, for Amazon to have drone deliveries for essential items. You don't want to actually wait for 2-3 days. You just want it now. So how we can make that happen is through drones. So handling businesses, making sure the essential items are getting delivered. Drones and robots come in really nice and handy together. The impact of jobs is they can be really helpful. Basically, it will help more of the community in this COVID-19 also. And it will also flourish companies to leverage these drone packaging and handling companies, because companies which are like Smile Direct, which is a Invisalign for teeth, that actually is a direct-to-consumer business, they actually flourish. They don't have to rely on postal services, on someone to go drive in. They can just have these services available. So it would be great to see that a lot. And I'm actually seeing some of it. An example is one company delivered me food in a Starship. It's actually a remote controlled robot car delivering food in my neighborhood. That's just the beginning. The third thing, we know as of right now, restaurants are heavily impacted. They're impacted by tons. I used to go to this burrito shop in San Francisco. Now they're closed. They're out of business. They've filed bankruptcy. This is a real life example that's happening. Entrepreneurs who talk about making an impact, changing the world. This might be one of the things that we will see. A few years ago, Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber, actually started, as you can see, cloud kitchens. Just to give you an idea how cloud kitchens work, cloud kitchen is a concept is like, if you are a person who wants to start this restaurant, but you don't want to have a seat, like basically a sit-in restaurant, you basically want to deliver food, give them high quality food. That's where cloud kitchen comes in. Cloud kitchen is basically, imagine a warehouse, a nice warehouse, which has multiple, compartmentized areas. Each compartment of area has actually everything that the kitchen has: a sink, a cleaning, cooking place, stove, ovens, and everything operating at scale. And what happens is these restaurant owners can come in, instead of going ahead, having so much overhead cost in setting up a restaurant, paying the lease, paying the down payment for that, having overhead of waiters, and so forth, they can just focus on one important thing: the quality of food, renting the space, and then having the chef cooking the food. Rest is taken care of by Cloud Kitchen's platform. I'm not evangelizing the platform, I'm evangelizing the thought of it, which is they connect you with services like Uber Eats, Grubhub. These are the tools that actually consumers use to order food, right? So now they connect all those platforms with this Cloud Kitchen that exists in a particular place, and they basically deliver you food, high quality food. Why do we need this now? Why is it so important? Well, it actually will help a lot of restaurants survive. It would help them increase the quality of their food, increase the margin of their financial margins, but also lower their costs by ton. And I want to talk about those again. The overhead cost of hiring someone $15 an hour in the Bay Area or $20 an hour, it's a lot. They can lower their upfront costs, focus on the chef, have the good source of chef, people who cook food, and just take care of their customers in the quality of food that they want. And it's also competitive food pricing, since they're not spending so much money in, per se, getting a space for themselves and so forth, the cost of food also goes down. Something which was $15, yeah, you can expect to have the same quality and high quality food in $10. I am definitely sure this is going to survive. Just for the record, this is Cloud Kitchens. I urge you guys to check it out, search it, because this is actually happening. It's really active in the space. Now let's talk about something really interesting, telehealth. Right now, let's talk about the landscape. Right now, there's so many people in COVID-19 who are affected by it, sadly, are in hospitals. And we are not even able to fill beds. The doctors are busy, the nurses are busy. They're even calling people who can even help at any point. Like, you have some, healthcare background, please come and help us. So now let's shift the thought. What happens to those existing patients that may have some kind of an illness? They are actually either being kept separately in a separate hospital, or they're being like in separate beds, or probably even taken home because they're like, we don't want you to get sick more. And so the interesting thought, what's happening now, Teletalk is actually a company which brings people, basically it's like all these health professionals are on demand, and you need to have insurance for that, but they're on demand. Healthcare, also I want to surface one thing, healthcare is a big problem in the United States. When I say a big problem, it's not like other, it's not like other European countries where they have universal healthcare. We don't. You have to have a job to either pay for your healthcare, and if you don't, then you have to pay for your healthcare insurance per se. The reality is that the healthcare is really expensive. You call an emergency ambulance as of right now, if I were to, it's gonna cost me like $7,000. But if I have insurance, I probably have to pay like $500. An average person who doesn't have healthcare cannot afford it. And so some of the things what the industry can do primarily is taking care of some of the foundational work. That's what I believe. And this could be a beginning of providing good healthcare. So here are my 3 pointers. Having affordable hardware devices. I believe if we can have education at home, we can do work from home, we can also have physical checkup and health checkups at home. There needs to be a device, and I hope VCs and entrepreneurs around the world work on it, is a checkup. Like, you just use that device, I don't know, strap it on, blood works and pinch. If we can do like blood work for sugar, I think it would be great if we can get some technology like that. But I foresee the vision for healthcare is it could help us to have our checkups at home. The other thing is, if we do checkups at home, we can actually prioritize in emergency cases that need to show up in hospital compared to non-emergency cases. Someone who has a normal flu, stay at home. Someone who has a really bad heart disease or something that, got a minor stroke or something, yeah, come to emergency, come to the doctor immediately. It will really help prioritize a lot of things. And that is patient first model, what I'm talking about. It's not doctor first or insurance first, it's patient first. One of the companies I really believe that can make a really vital role is Apple. Apple Watch actually can help conduct a ECG, which is amazing. So I think those healthcare devices, smart devices, can play a role. Someone like Fitbit, Apple Watch, Samsung Watch, they can play a big role in keeping your doctor informed about your health well-being. Are you working out? Are you exercising? How's your ECG? How's your heart? That actually helps. So my takeaway from this is this would be a longer term vision per se. We might even see it in 10 years. Or I'm not sure that could happen in 5 years, because of bureaucracy around this place. But definitely in the next 10 years, we're going to see this. Now, this is my favorite subject because I know a lot of Silicon Valley investors have been investing left and right in Silicon Valley or even US. But what I'm talking about over here is a lot of entrepreneurs may see a lot of investment happening really soon internationally because they will have access to things that we have over here, right? So they can work remotely. The talent is good everywhere. It's not based on location. So as an investor, even as an investor, I would say is like, I'd rather go international, increase my higher ROIs basically. So they're much more, winnings per se. And also the cost and the affordability of talent is low. So my $2 million investment, let's say in Prague, could be equivalent to $10 million investment in the Bay Area. Those are, this I would definitely say would be a big one, because this can help the whole economic center around the world, around countries. And since we know like countries like, cities like Prague, Ukraine, Brazil, Mexico, Poland, Russia, all they have really affordable access to the best talent in the world. Like, of course, they have outsourced, but they have the best talent. So it's time to leverage that. And I think Silicon Valley investors will start doing that. And I'm actually seeing a lot of investments. One of them I want to highlight is Product Board that just got funded. It's based in Prague, and they also have some small offices in San Francisco, but their main office is in Prague. That's what I would see more, and this should help entrepreneurs around the world. Just want to summarize the last thing, what my key takeaway from all of this is, if you backtrack it, we're trying to build a better and safer world. We need to do our best. I think tech people need to play their part. We have to come together in helping people who are losing businesses like restaurants to have it remotely or have cloud kitchens or things like those. Doctors to have a patient-first experience and so forth. That's my key takeaways. So if you're an entrepreneur, I would really recommend try to focus from the key learnings from pandemic, see where the needs are, validate them, and help make an impact right now.
Thank you very much, Imran. And we thank all our keynote speakers today, and see you all tomorrow as well for our Singapore Roadshow for beach competition, which will start at 12 p.m. UK time, and then at 4 p.m. UK time, please join us for Startup Leaders Club, and we'll discuss the influence of pandemic on the formation of business models among startuppers. And thank you all for sharing both the investment community, investor community, and serial entrepreneurs, because this community role is very vital and important for all of us today. Thank you so much, and see you soon online. Bye-bye.